Galactic Envoys shuddered as a human snapped an alien Behemoth's spine by hand. But when Major Vu faced cybernetically enhanced Commander Draven in the heart of the secret facility, history repeated with purpose. As Alara broadcast their evidence galaxy-wide, Vu tore apart the Mastermind's spine cybernetic junction, transforming an act that once inspired fear into a symbol of justice for all species. The Grand Hall of Nebulan 5 sparkled under the artificial light of 3 miniature suns, suspended in perfect harmony above the assembly chamber, located in the Andrillis star system. This diplomatic station represented the pinnacle of interspecies architecture, a testament to cooperation across the vast expanses of the Milky Way. The polished obsidian floors reflected the diverse forms of the gathered dignitaries, some floating, others crawling, a few lumbering on multiple legs. And then there was Major Lemin Vu, walking upright on 2 legs, the sole human in attendance. Major Vu adjusted the collar of his midnight blue uniform, the golden emblem of Earth's unified forces, catching the light as he moved. At 35 Earth years, he stood tall among the delegation, his athletic frame betraying the enhanced musculature that had become standard for Earth's military elite. His features, a harmonious blend of his Vietnamese heritage, remained impassive despite the weight of responsibility pressing down upon his shoulders. As humanity's first envoy to the Galactic Alliance Council, every gesture, every word would be scrutinized. The Alliance had reluctantly extended membership to Earth just 3 years ago, after centuries of observation. Humans were deemed volatile but promising, a classification that haunted diplomatic relations. Today's gathering would either cement their position or confirm the fears of those who opposed human inclusion. Major Vu, a melodic voice called out. The sound originated from Zaltar, the Dravari representative, whose translucent blue skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, their form of expression. The council chairman requests your presence at the central podium before proceedings begin. Vu nodded respectfully. Thank you, Honorable Zaltar. I shall attend immediately. He navigated through clusters of delegates, noting how conversations hushed as he passed. The Zelnor contingent, with their crystalline exoskeletons, turned their faceted eyes toward him with unmistakable curiosity. The bulky Uthric delegation, resembling Earth's rhinoceros, but with intelligence burning in their 6 eyes, watched with open suspicion. Chairman Zorlath awaited at the center of the chamber, a member of the ancient Archivian species. His elongated head housed the largest documented brain in the galaxy. His spindly limbs belied remarkable strength, and his voice, when he spoke, resonated with the wisdom of his 1,000-year lifespan. Major Lemin Vu, the chairman intoned, his translator rendering his complex harmonic speech into standard galactic common. Today's council gathers to address the Death Zone crisis. As Earth borders this contested region, your input will be significant. The Death Zone, a cluster of planets near the edge of Alliance territory, where biological anomalies defied conventional science. Once thriving worlds, they had become testing grounds for something sinister, producing organisms of unprecedented aggression and resilience. Earth's colony on Proxima Centauri 2 stood mere light-years away. I am prepared to represent humanity's interests and contribute to a peaceful resolution, Vu replied, his translator converting his words for the benefit of species whose auditory ranges differed from humans. The chairman's pupils contracted slightly, an Archivian expression of approval. Very good. The presentation begins in 30 minutes. Until then, I suggest familiarizing yourself with the other delegates. First impressions, major, often determine the course of interstellar politics. As the chairman glided away, Vu surveyed the chamber. Alliance politics resembled Earth's own, only exponentially more complex. Alliances formed and dissolved based on evolutionary histories, biological needs, and ancient grudges that predated human civilization. From the corner of his eye, he noticed a slender Zelnor approaching. Unlike her peers, her crystalline structure reflected deep violet hues rather than the typical azure. Her movements possessed a fluid grace unusual for her species. "Major Vu," she spoke, her translator adding a slight musical quality to her words. "I am Alara Vishan, xenobiological researcher. Your species fascinates me." Vu offered a diplomatic smile. "Dr. Alara Vishan, it's an honor. I hope our fascination proves warranted." "You are the first human I've encountered personally," she continued, crystal facets shifting in what Vu recognized as their version of scrutiny. "Your adaptability is remarkable. Most species require generations to evolve for space travel. Humans simply engineered solutions." "Necessity breeds innovation," Vu replied. "When your planet faces resource depletion, you either adapt or perish." "Indeed." Her facets darkened momentarily. Though some council members view such rapid advancement as concerning, the Uthric delegation particularly questions whether humans have developed the wisdom to match their technological progress. Before Vu could respond, a resonant tone echoed throughout the chamber, the call to assembly. Delegates moved toward their designated positions in the circular arrangement of seating. As Earth's representative, Vu found himself placed between the Mercurian Collective and the Dravari Consortium, strategic positioning that spoke volumes about the Alliance's political calculations. The chairman activated the central holographic display, his elongated fingers dancing through complex protocols. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Alliance, we convene today to address the growing threat emerging from the region designated as the Death Zone. For those unfamiliar, these once viable worlds have, over the past 30 standard cycles, become breeding grounds for biological anomalies that threaten neighboring systems." Images materialized above the assembly. Planets with atmospheres turned blood red, surfaces scarred by massive impact craters that pulsed with unnatural energy. Data streams indicated exponential increases in mutation rates among indigenous species. "Our science division has prepared a demonstration," the chairman continued. "To understand what we face, we must observe firsthand." The chamber's lighting dimmed as a section of the floor retracted. From below, a massive containment chamber rose, reinforced transparasteel walls surrounding what appeared to be an empty habitat. Empty until it wasn't. A massive form shimmered into visibility as its adaptive camouflage deactivated. Standing nearly 12 meters tall, the creature resembled an unholy fusion of insect and reptile. Its exoskeleton gleamed with metallic properties, 6 limbs ending in serrated appendages that could shear through spacecraft hull material. Its head housed multiple compound eyes that swiveled independently, scanning the chamber with predatory intelligence. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembly. "This," announced the chairman, "is classified as a Behemoth Uthric, captured during our last expedition to the Death Zone. Note the biological similarities to the Uthric species, yet with significant, unnatural modifications." The Uthric delegation rumbled with indignation, their translator unit struggling to convert their complex vocalizations. Their leader, Ambassador Kroll, eventually spoke clearly. "This abomination bears only superficial resemblance to our sacred evolutionary path. We demand to know who perverts biology in this manner." "That," the chairman replied solemnly, "is precisely why we've gathered. The Behemoth represents just one of dozens of species hybrid monstrosities emerging from the Death Zone. Each appears designed not just for survival, but for warfare." Vu studied the creature with professional assessment. Its musculature, skeletal structure, and reflexive movements suggested purpose-built design. This was no natural evolution. This was weaponization of biology on an unprecedented scale. "The containment field is generating 18 terawatts of suppression energy," explained a science officer, a floating nebulite whose gaseous body pulsed with neural activity. "Even so, The specimen has demonstrated remarkable resilience and problem-solving abilities. We believe it communicates with others of its kind through subsonic frequencies. As if responding to its description, the behemoth suddenly lurched toward the containment wall. Its massive fist struck the transparisteel with such force that the entire chamber shuddered. Alarm indicators flashed across monitoring stations. "Containment at 87% and declining," announced an automated system. "Field integrity compromised." The science officer's gaseous form darkened with concern. "Impossible! The field should withstand." Another thunderous impact interrupted. Hairline fractures appeared across the containment wall. The behemoth had begun systematically testing different sections, identifying structural weaknesses with frightening intelligence. "Evacuate the chamber," ordered the chairman, his usual composure faltering. "Security protocols Alpha through Delta." Chaos erupted as delegates scrambled toward exits. Security personnel, primarily of Dravari and Archivian origin, rushed forward with containment technology. But their efforts seemed insufficient against the behemoth's relentless assault. 3 more impacts. The transparisteel barrier shattered. The behemoth roared, a sound that combined the screech of tearing metal with the rumble of tectonic plates shifting. It lunged forward, capturing 2 security officers in its massive appendages before they could react. Their screams echoed briefly, before being silenced with sickening finality. Vu remained motionless, assessing. The security force's energy weapons caused superficial damage at best against the creature's exoskeleton. Its movements displayed tactical awareness, targeting communications equipment, power junctions, and blocking primary exits. This was no mindless beast. It was executing what appeared to be a pre-programmed military strategy. From across the chamber, Vu's eyes met the chairman's. A silent understanding passed between them. The diplomatic implications were enormous, but the immediate threat demanded action. The chairman's voice cut through the chaos. "Major Vu, Earth's military capabilities are requested." This was the moment that would define humanity's standing. A test, whether intentional or circumstantial. Vu removed his formal diplomatic coat, revealing the form-fitting tactical undersuit that Earth's military personnel never traveled without. "Clear the chamber," Vu commanded, his voice carrying unexpected authority that momentarily stunned even the panicking delegates into compliance. The behemoth had noticed him now, the only being moving toward it rather than away. It paused, compound eyes, focusing on this new potential threat, analyzing. Vu activated his suit's minimal enhancements, nothing compared to full battle armor, but enough to augment his natural abilities. Micro-hydraulics and nerve stimulators came online, interfacing with his enhanced musculature. "Earth representative," called out Ambassador Kroll of the Uthrek, who had remained despite the danger. "That creature has already killed 8 security personnel. Its exoskeleton withstands our most advanced weapons. What do you hope to accomplish without proper armament?" Vu didn't respond. His focus had narrowed to the immediate threat assessment. The behemoth stood between him and the chamber's main power junction. If it destroyed that, the entire diplomatic station would face catastrophic systems failure. The creature charged, moving with surprising speed for its massive bulk, its front appendages extended, serrated edges aiming to eviscerate. Vu waited until the last possible moment before moving. To the observing delegates, he seemed to vanish, reappearing behind the behemoth's right flank. The creature's momentum carried it forward, crashing into an empty diplomatic podium. Before it could recover, Vu leaped upward, enhanced muscles propelling him to a height that drew gasps from the observers. He landed on the behemoth's upper back, fingers finding purchase in the seams of its exoskeleton. The creature bucked and thrashed, trying to dislodge him. Its massive limbs couldn't reach the position he'd secured. Vu's analytical mind had already identified the creature's vulnerabilities, the joint sections where exoskeletal plates connected, leaving microscopically small gaps in its armor. With one hand maintaining his grip, Vu drove his other fist into a particular seam, near what appeared to be a central neural cluster. The impact would have shattered a normal human's bones, but Vu's enhanced skeletal structure absorbed the shock. The behemoth shrieked, its multiple limbs flailing in renewed fury. It slammed backward into a wall, nearly crushing Vu, who rolled away at the last second. Both combatants circled each other now, reassessing. By now, most delegates had evacuated, but a few remained, watching in horrified fascination. Dr. Ilara Vishan stood transfixed near a support column, her crystalline form reflecting the emergency lighting in prismatic patterns. The chairman and several security officers observed from the chamber's elevated platform. The behemoth attacked again, this time with coordinated strikes from multiple limbs. Vu dodged most, but one caught him across the chest, sending him sliding across the polished floor. The blow would have killed an unenhanced human instantly. Vu rose, a thin line of blood tracing his jawline, but otherwise unharmed. What happened next would be recorded, analyzed, and debated throughout the Alliance for years to come. Vu charged directly at the behemoth, moving faster than the alien observers thought possible for his species. The creature prepared to intercept him, but at the last moment, Vu dropped and slid beneath its massive form, in a fluid motion that belied the tremendous strength required. He grasped one of the behemoth's supporting legs and pulled. The 12-meter monster lost balance, crashing downward. Before it could right itself, Vu was on its back again. This time, he drove both hands deep into the junction between its head and thorax, fingers finding the central neural stem that served as its spine. With a roar that matched the behemoth's earlier cry, Vu exerted force that no unmodified human could generate. The sound of cracking organic metallic material echoed throughout the chamber as he literally tore the creature's spine apart with his bare hands. The behemoth convulsed once, twice, then fell still. Silence descended upon the chamber. Vu stood, hands coated in the iridescent blue fluid that served as the creature's blood. His breathing was controlled, his posture straight as military discipline reasserted itself. He turned toward the remaining observers, whose expressions ranged from shock to horror to grudging admiration. "The threat has been neutralized," he stated formally, addressing the chairman. "I request cleanup crews and medical assistance for any injured personnel." The chairman stared, his ancient eyes unreadable. After a long moment, he responded, "Major Lemin Vu, your intervention has been noted. The council stands adjourned until tomorrow, when we shall discuss not only the death zone threat, but also the implications of what we've witnessed today." As security teams finally entered to secure the behemoth's remains, Vu became aware of the weight of stares upon him. He had protected the assembly, potentially saved countless lives, yet the expressions directed his way were not of gratitude, but fear. Dr. Ilara Vishan approached, her crystalline form vibrating slightly, an indication of intense emotion among the Zelnor. "That was unexpected," she said, her translator struggling to convey the complex harmonics of her native speech. "You killed it with your physical strength alone." "I did what was necessary," Vu replied, wiping the alien blood from his hands with a cloth offered by a staff member. "Yes," she agreed, facets shifting in what might have been concern. "But necessary actions have consequences, major, particularly in diplomatic circles." As Vu looked around at the damaged chamber, at the delegates whispering among themselves while casting furtive glances his way, he realized the truth of her statement. He had neutralized one threat, only to potentially create another: fear of humanity's capabilities. "The chairman has requested your presence in Isolation Chamber 3, announced a security officer, approaching cautiously. "You are to remain there until formal questioning can commence." Vu nodded, understanding the protocols for incidents of this magnitude. "Dr. Vishan," he addressed the Zelnor scientist, "would you examine the creature's remains? I believe its attack pattern suggests more than random aggression. There may be evidence of programming or control mechanisms. Her facets brightened with scientific curiosity. An astute observation. I shall request permission to conduct such analysis. As Vu was escorted from the chamber, he caught a final glimpse of the fallen behemoth. Something about its construction, its tactical behavior, nagged at his military instincts. This wasn't just a biological anomaly from the death zone. This was a weapon, and weapons required manufacturers. The diplomatic storm was just beginning. The isolation chamber resembled a luxury suite, more than a detention facility, a diplomatic courtesy that did little to disguise its purpose. Vu sat motionless on a conforming chair, his posture military straight, despite 12 hours of continuous questioning. The latest delegation to interrogate him, representatives from the Uthrek hegemony, had just departed, their massive forms lumbering through doorways designed to accommodate various physiologies. The door whispered open again, revealing the slender form of the chairman. His elongated features betrayed no emotion as he glided into the room, dismissing the security detail with a subtle gesture. "Major Vu," he began, settling into a chair opposite the human. "You have endured much scrutiny today." "It's expected, Chairman," Vu replied evenly. "The death of the behemoth raises valid security concerns." "Indeed." The chairman's large eyes blinked slowly. "Though not precisely the concerns you might anticipate. The council is divided. Major. Some view your actions as necessary protection of the assembly. Others see only confirmation of their fears, that humans possess destructive capabilities disproportionate to their evolutionary development." Vu remained silent, allowing the chairman to continue. "The Dravari Consortium has formally requested your removal from diplomatic service, citing barbaric tendencies incompatible with civilized discourse. The Zelnor are divided, with their scientific community advocating for a more measured assessment. The Uthrek, surprisingly, have expressed reluctant admiration for your combat efficiency." "And your position, Chairman?" The ancient being's lipless mouth curved slightly. "I have lived long enough to recognize when fear motivates policy. Your species evolved on a high-gravity world with extraordinary biodiversity, including apex predators that would terrify most Alliance citizens. The adaptations that allowed humans to survive such conditions naturally imbued you with capabilities that seem excessive to species with different evolutionary paths." He leaned forward, lowering his voice despite their privacy. "But capabilities are not intentions, Major. I am more concerned with what the behemoth represents than with how it was neutralized." Vu nodded, sensing an ally, however tentative. "The creature exhibited tactical intelligence and targeted critical infrastructure. This suggests purpose beyond simple aggression." "Precisely my assessment." The chairman activated a small, holographic projector. "While you've been sequestered, Dr. Alara Vishan conducted preliminary examinations of the remains. Her findings are disturbing." The projection displayed microscopic imagery of the behemoth's neural tissue, highlighting structures that appeared artificial. "Implanted control nodes," Vu observed. "Military grade?" "Yes. Technology exceeding current Alliance standards by approximately 2 generations. The creature was not merely a biological anomaly. It was a constructed weapon with remote operation capabilities. The implications hung heavily between them. Biological warfare was expressly forbidden by the Foundation treaties that had established the Alliance 10,000 years ago. The Death Zone's anomalies had been attributed to natural phenomena or ecological collapse, disturbing but not malicious. This changed everything. "There will be a closed council session tomorrow," the chairman continued. "The Behemoth incident is now classified at the highest security level. Your diplomatic status is officially suspended pending investigation, but unofficially." He paused, eyes searching Vu's face. "I believe your unique capabilities may be required again, Major." You suspect deliberate infiltration. I suspect we have enemies within the Alliance itself. The chairman rose. For now, you are confined to diplomatic quarters. Communications with Earth remain restricted, a concession I made to appease the Dravari. Dr. Vishan has requested permission to consult with you regarding her findings. I have granted this, as scientific collaboration falls within acceptable protocols. After the chairman departed, Vu spent hours in silent meditation, a practice that had helped him maintain psychological balance since childhood. The enhanced physiology that had allowed him to defeat the Behemoth came with neurological side effects: heightened aggression, accelerated thought patterns, sensory hypersensitivity. Meditation helped integrate these enhancements with his core humanity. A subtle chime announced another visitor. The door opened to reveal Dr. Ilara Vishan, her crystalline form now adorned with what appeared to be scientific instruments integrated into her exoskeleton. "Major Vu," she greeted, her facets shifting in patterns he couldn't yet interpret. "May I enter?" "Please do, Doctor." He gestured to a seating arrangement. "I understand you've made progress with the Behemoth analysis." She settled into a position that accommodated her crystalline physiology. Beyond initial expectations, the biological components show genetic markers from 17 distinct species, most native to the Death Zone planets. But the integration methodology, her facets darkened. It bears striking similarity to classified Zelnor biomechanical research. Vu's expression remained neutral, but his mind raced with implications. Research that shouldn't be available outside your species. Precisely. Research that was discontinued 300 cycles ago due to ethical concerns. She extended a crystalline appendage, projecting data directly from her integrated equipment. These neural control nodes incorporate quantum entanglement principles that allow instantaneous communication across vast distances. They could not have evolved naturally. Someone is manufacturing weapons using restricted research, Vu concluded. With specific targets in mind, the Behemoth's attack wasn't random. It focused on communications and power systems. Alara's facets shifted to a deep purple, an emotional response Vu couldn't interpret. "There's more. I found molecular evidence of Death Zone environmental exposure in its tissue. Not samples, but actual sustained exposure. This creature lived there. Major. Recently. Suggesting an active facility within the Death Zone itself." "Yes. A facility using restricted Zelnor technology." Her voice lowered. "Which implies either theft of our research or complicity from within your species," Vu finished, understanding her discomfort. "Have you reported this to your government?" "Not yet. The implications are politically sensitive. The Zelnor Confluence has been advocating for restricted technology, sharing with newer Alliance members. If our proprietary research has been weaponized." The unspoken conclusion hung between them. Interspecies conflict on a scale not seen for millennia. The Alliance's fragile peace depended on technological balance and adherence to the Foundation treaties. "We need more information," Vu decided. "Conjecture without evidence will only exacerbate diplomatic tensions." Alara's crystalline form vibrated slightly, her species equivalent of a nod. "I agree, but you remain under diplomatic restriction, and I cannot access the Death Zone without Council authorization." Vu's eyes narrowed as a plan began forming. Perhaps not through official channels, but the chairman implied certain unofficial latitude might be available to address this threat. "You're suggesting we investigate independently?" Her facets shifted rapidly. Alarm, interest, calculation. "That violates numerous protocols." "So does creating biological weapons from restricted technology," Vu countered. "The question becomes which violation poses the greater threat to the Alliance." After a long moment, Alara's facets settled into a steady blue glow. Determination. "I can access a research vessel through my academic credentials. Small, but equipped for xenobiological fieldwork. And I can bypass the diplomatic quarter restrictions, Vu added. My security training included counter-surveillance techniques applicable to alliance systems. This is highly irregular. Major Vu. Despite her words, her tone indicated growing commitment to their nascent plan. As is a 12-meter biological weapon attacking the Galactic Council, he replied with grim humor. We leave at station midnight. Prepare only essential equipment. We need to travel light and fast. As Alara departed, Vu returned to meditation, but with a different focus. The coming mission would require perfect integration of his enhanced capabilities and tactical training. And, perhaps most challenging, it would require him to place his trust in an alien scientist he barely knew, one whose own species might be implicated in the conspiracy they sought to uncover. The political fallout from his actions in the council chamber had only just begun. But Vu suspected that what awaited in the death zone would make diplomatic tensions seem trivial by comparison. Nebulon 5's secondary docking bay operated on a reduced staff during station night cycle. Vu moved through maintenance corridors, his diplomatic uniform replaced with nondescript attire that wouldn't attract attention. The security systems detected his presence, but identified him as authorized maintenance personnel, a false credential planted through a temporary override of the station's identification protocols. Dr. Alara Vashon awaited at docking port 17. Her crystalline form dimmed to minimal luminescence. Beside her rested 2 containers of equipment, one bearing scientific markings, the other unmarked. You're 4 minutes later than agreed, she noted as he approached, her translator rendering her harmonic speech into a whisper. Security patrols increased in the diplomatic sector, Vu explained, examining the unmarked container. Your research vessel? Bay 19. The Crystalline Inquiry, registered for xenobiological sample collection. She indicated the unmarked container. Equipment you requested, obtained through colleagues who owed me scientific favors. I didn't specify the intended use. Vu opened the container, revealing a compact arsenal, a particle disruptor, molecular destabilizer, and what appeared to be a Zelnor phase shifter, all restricted weapons, not typically available to research vessels. Your colleagues have interesting definitions of scientific equipment, he observed, securing the weapons to his person. Xenobiologists working in uncharted regions face significant hazards, she replied, facets shifting in what Vu was beginning to recognize as the Zelnor equivalent of a shrug. The Foundation treaties allow for reasonable self-defense provisions. They proceeded to Bay 19, where the Crystalline Inquiry awaited, a sleek vessel, approximately 30 meters in length. Its hull composed of the same crystalline material as Alara's exoskeleton. The boarding ramp extended silently at their approach. Biomechanical interfacing, Alara explained, noting Vu's interest. The vessel recognizes my specific crystalline frequency. Once aboard, Vu studied the ship's interior with professional assessment. The configuration was alien, but functional. Navigation systems, life support appropriate for multiple species, and concealed defensive capabilities that exceeded standard research parameters. This isn't a typical academic vessel, he noted, as Alara integrated herself with the ship's control systems, her appendages merging with crystalline interfaces. It belonged to my research mentor, she replied, initiating launch sequences. She believed in being prepared for unexpected discoveries. A wise approach. Vu secured their equipment as the ship hummed to life. Our destination? Mortis Prime, the epicenter of death zone anomalies and the most likely location for a hidden facility based on the Behemoth's tissue analysis. Crystalline displays materialized, showing navigation coordinates and planetary data. Journey time, approximately 47 hours using conventional drives until we clear Alliance space. Then, quantum translation to final approach. The Crystalline Inquiry departed Nebulon 5 with minimal documentation. A research expedition logged for a different destination, with return expected within standard week. By the time the falsified records were discovered, they would either have found evidence of the conspiracy or met a fate that would render administrative penalties irrelevant. During the journey, Vu and Alara established a working protocol that bridged their different physiologies and thought processes. She briefed him on death zone environmental hazards, atmospheric toxicity, gravitational anomalies, indigenous predators adapted to chaotic conditions. He shared tactical approaches for covert infiltration, adapting military strategies to account for her crystalline form's strengths and limitations. "Your species enhancement programs are fascinating," Alara remarked during their final preparation, studying Vu as he performed a series of calibration exercises for his augmented nervous system. The integration of mechanical components with biological systems without rejection. "Necessity drove innovation," Vu replied, completing a movement sequence that would appear impossibly fast to unaugmented humans. Earth's gravity and environmental challenges required adaptation. When natural evolution proved too slow, we accelerated it artificially. Yet the psychological impacts must be considerable. To possess such capabilities, to know you can end lives with minimal effort, how do you maintain balance? Vu paused, considering the question seriously. Discipline, meditation, purpose. The enhancements amplify what exists. Doctor, they don't create something from nothing. And what existed before your enhancements, Major Vu? A soldier who understood that power requires responsibility. He met her faceted gaze directly. The same principle applies to scientific knowledge, does it not? Her crystalline surface rippled in what he now recognized as acknowledgement. Indeed. A principle perhaps forgotten by whoever adapts Zelnor research for weapons development. Their conversation was interrupted by proximity alerts. The crystalline inquiry had reached the outer boundary of the death zone, a region where normal space began exhibiting subtle distortions. Beyond the viewports, stars appeared to shift position slightly, their light bending around gravitational eddies that defied standard physics. "Entering sensor blackout zone," Alara announced, her form physically connecting more deeply with the ship's systems. "Alliance monitoring cannot penetrate this region. We're officially beyond communication range. And unofficial monitoring. Also neutralized. I've activated countermeasures against quantum entanglement surveillance." She projected a three-dimensional map of their approach vector. "Mortis Prime orbital insertion in 17 hours. We should prepare for environmental transition." The final approach to Mortis Prime revealed a world transformed by whatever catastrophe had created the death zone. Once a temperate planet with Earth-like conditions, it now presented a nightmarish landscape. Continents fractured by massive fissures that vented superheated gases. Oceans glowing with bioluminescent organisms that shouldn't exist according to conventional biology. And an atmosphere swirling with particulates that created permanent electrical storms across the equatorial regions. Primary scanner results confirm artificial structures in the northern hemisphere, Alara reported as they established orbit beyond detection range. Energy signatures indicate active power generation, significant capacity for a supposedly abandoned world. Vu studied the sensor data, his enhanced vision detecting patterns in the chaos. There, he indicated a region where mountain ranges formed a natural fortress. Terrain provides natural shielding against orbital detection, consistent with military installation protocols. Agreeing with your assessment, the structure appears integrated with the mountain itself, likely utilizing pre-existing cave systems expanded through artificial means. They initiated descent through Mortis Prime's turbulent atmosphere. The crystalline inquiry's advanced shielding dispersing the worst of the electrical discharges that threatened to disable their systems. Alara guided the vessel to a landing zone 15 kilometers from the suspected facility, close enough for approach on foot, distant enough to avoid immediate detection. As they donned environmental protection, Vu's a flexible second skin that enhanced rather than hindered his capabilities. Alara's a field generator that stabilized her crystalline structure against the planet's disruptive energies. The reality of their mission settled upon them. Two individuals, without official sanction, preparing to infiltrate what could be a militarized installation, manufacturing biological weapons of mass destruction. Our priority is evidence collection, Vu reiterated as they finalized equipment checks. Confirm the facility's purpose, identify responsible parties if possible, then extract for report to Alliance authorities. And if we encounter resistance, Alara's facets had shifted to a deep amber, preparation for potential conflict. Non-lethal neutralization when possible. But if we encounter more behemoths or similar weapons, then we do what is necessary, she finished, echoing his earlier words from the council chamber. They emerged onto Mortis Prime's surface, into an alien hell. The ground beneath their feet pulsed with seismic instability. The air, despite their protective equipment, carried the acrid scent of chemical processes gone awry. In the distance, lightning forked continuously between ground and sky, illuminating twisted landscapes that defied geological norms. Their journey to the facility tested both Vu's enhanced capabilities and Alara's alien resilience. They traversed acid lakes on crystalline platforms generated from Alara's own substance, painful for her, but necessary for their progress. They avoided indigenous predators that had adapted to the Death Zone's conditions, creatures with evolutionary advantages that made the behemoth seem almost conventional by comparison. At one point, they sheltered in a cave system to avoid detection by what appeared to be automated patrol drones. In the blue glow of Alara's natural bioluminescence, Vu studied her with newfound respect. The scientist had demonstrated courage and resourcefulness beyond his expectations. "You've done this before," he observed quietly. "Field operations, not just laboratory research." Her facets shifted in patterns, suggesting wry amusement. "The Zelnor confluence presents a unified image to other species. Major, like humanity, we have our internal divisions. My research division sometimes operates independently of central authority." "Intelligence gathering," Vu translated. "Information acquisition," she corrected. "For scientific purposes only, of course." Their moment of understanding was interrupted by proximity alerts from their scanning equipment. They had reached the outer perimeter of the facility, an area where natural terrain gave way to subtle, artificial modifications. Security measures were evident to Vu's trained eye. Motion sensors disguised as indigenous flora. Energy barriers harmonized to the planet's natural electromagnetic fields. Automated defense turrets positioned for overlapping fields of fire. "Military-grade security," he confirmed, adjusting his visual spectrum to identify vulnerabilities. "Consistent with Alliance protocols, but with modifications for Death Zone conditions." "Can we penetrate it?" Vu analyzed the pattern for several minutes before identifying their approach. "There's a maintenance access point 2 kilometers east, likely used for environmental monitoring. Security appears lighter there, assuming automated, rather than living monitoring." They proceeded with extreme caution, using natural cover, and Alara's ability to temporarily adjust her crystalline refraction properties to bend light around them. Not true invisibility, but sufficient to confuse automated systems. At the maintenance access, Vu employed countermeasures developed specifically for Alliance security systems, creating a localized loop in the surveillance network. The access point led them into maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the main facility, utilitarian passages designed for robotic servitors rather than organic beings. They advanced slowly, mapping their progress against structural patterns typical of military installations. The deeper they penetrated, the more evidence they found of the facility's true purpose. "These are biogenetic manufacturing components," Alara whispered, her sensors analyzing equipment visible through ventilation shafts. "Molecular assemblers, genetic sequencers, neural programming arrays, far beyond legitimate research parameters." Vu nodded grimly. And those? He indicated larger chambers, where massive forms lay dormant in suspension tanks. Appear to be behemoths in various stages of development. Dozens of them. They had found their evidence, a factory producing biological weapons on an industrial scale. But questions remained. Who operated this facility? And to what end? Their answer came as they accessed a central control room during a rotation gap in personnel. While Alara interfaced with the facility's data systems, extracting evidence of operations and design specifications, Vu discovered command protocols that chilled his enhanced blood. These weapons are designed for deployment against specific Alliance worlds, he reported, scanning tactical overlays. Population centers, governmental complexes, critical infrastructure. This isn't research. It's preparation for systematic warfare. I've identified the command authority. Alara's harmonic voice had gone flat, a sign of extreme distress among her kind. Major, this facility operates under Uthric military protocols, but with Zelnor biogenetic research integration, and the authorization codes. Her facets darkened to near black. They include signatures from both our governments, high-level access. The implications struck them simultaneously. A conspiracy, reaching into the highest echelons of multiple Alliance species, preparing for a war that would devastate current power structures and potentially end the 10,000-year peace. We need to transmit this evidence immediately, Vu decided, preparing a data package for emergency broadcast. Agreed. But standard communications won't penetrate the death zone interference. We need to access their primary communication array. Alara stopped abruptly, her sensory facets vibrating with alarm. Security breach detected. They know we're here. Facility alarms activated, bathing the control room in pulsing red light. Vu's tactical training took over as he secured their collected evidence and assessed their options. Extraction route compromised. We need an alternative. The facility's communication array is 3 levels up. Alara projected a structural diagram extracted from the system. If we can reach it, I can transmit our findings directly to the chairman using quantum entanglement frequencies that bypass standard protocols. Then that's our objective. Vu readied his weapons, knowing stealth was no longer an option. Stay close. This will require direct confrontation. What followed was a desperate battle through the facility's levels. Security forces, primarily Uthrak soldiers with Zelnor technical support, converged on their position. Vu employed his enhanced capabilities without restraint now, his movements a blur of lethal efficiency as he cleared paths forward. Alara provided tactical support, her crystalline form generating defensive barriers and occasionally offensive projections that incapacitated rather than killed. They fought their way upward, level by level, encountering increasing resistance. At one junction, they faced a contingent of security drones controlled by a Zelnor technician who recognized Alara. "Researcher Vishan," the technician's translator rendered in shocked tones. "You betray your own kind for this human?" "I serve scientific ethics," she replied, her crystalline form pulsing with determination. "What happens here violates everything the Confluence claims to stand for." "Progress requires sacrifice," the technician countered, directing drones to encircle them. "The Alliance stagnates while younger species like humans threaten to overtake us. This facility ensures our continued dominance." "Through genocide?" Vu challenged, positioning himself protectively near Alara. "How many worlds will you sacrifice for your dominance?" "As many as necessary," came a new voice from behind the security contingent. A massive Uthric emerged, his six-eyed gaze fixed on Vu with cold calculation. Unlike standard Uthric physiology, this individual bore visible cybernetic enhancements, neural interfaces, and musculature augmentation that rivaled Vu's own. "Commander Draven Coral," the Uthric introduced himself, massive head inclining slightly in mock courtesy. "Former tactical overseer for the Uthric hegemony, now director of special projects. You've caused considerable disruption. Major Lemin Vu. The Alliance speaks highly of your performance against our prototype. Your prototype, Vu repeated, mind-calculating combat probabilities against this new threat. You orchestrated the Behemoth's attack on the Council. A necessary demonstration, Draven confirmed without hesitation. The Alliance required motivation to authorize increased military presence in the Death Zone. Your unexpected intervention accelerated our timeline, but adaptation is the essence of strategic superiority. You're manufacturing weapons for war against your own allies, Alara accused, her crystalline form vibrating with outrage, violating every principle of the Foundation treaties. Treaties, written by the ancient species to maintain their dominance, Draven countered. While newer species like humans receive conditional membership, subject to endless restrictions and surveillance, the current power structure is unsustainable. So you create monsters to topple it, Vu observed, noting the positioning of security forces, identifying weaknesses, killing millions in the process. Creating a new order, Draven corrected. One where evolutionary potential determines leadership, not historical accident. Your demonstration in the Council Chamber proved our point. Major. Humans achieved in centuries what took other species millennia. Imagine what our combined potential could accomplish without the constraints of outdated treaties. You're offering an alliance? Vu asked, buying time as he assessed their tactical position. I'm offering evolutionary reality. Join us. And humanity receives full, technological integration, rather than the scraps currently allowed by the Alliance. Oppose us. The massive Uthrak activated his cybernetic enhancements, mechanical components extending from his armored hide. And you become another failed evolutionary branch. Vu exchanged a brief glance with Alara, silent communication passing between them. They had fought together, survived together, developed a trust that transcended their biological differences. Her slight, crystalline vibration confirmed their shared decision. Humanity doesn't need your evolution, Vu declared, shifting subtly into combat stance. We've survived worse than you. Draven's multiple eyes narrowed. Admirable but misguided. Security Protocol Omega. Terminate with extreme prejudice. What followed would later be described in Alliance military academies as the Mortis Confrontation, a battle between enhanced representatives of three distinct evolutionary paths. Draven's augmented Uthric form possessed overwhelming strength and integrated weapon systems. The Zelnor technicians generated crystalline constructs with devastating offensive capabilities, and Major Lemin Vu, sole human, moved with speed and precision that defied conventional physics. Alara provided critical support, her scientific knowledge translating to battlefield applications as she disrupted enemy systems and protected Vu from energy-based attacks. Together, they fought through the security forces, Vu neutralizing opponents with efficient but non-lethal strikes when possible, lethal force when necessary. Draven proved a formidable opponent, his cybernetic systems adapting to Vu's combat patterns. For every successful strike Vu landed, Draven's augmentations compensated, rerouting functions and strengthening defenses. They battled through corridors and chambers, destroying equipment and infrastructure in their wake. You fight well for a species so young, Draven acknowledged, as they crashed through a laboratory containing developmental stages of new bioweapons. But you lack evolutionary perspective. The strong survive by eliminating competition. Humanity survived by cooperation, Vu countered, dodging a mechanical appendage that would have severed his spine. Strength through unity, not domination. Their battle reached the communication center, a massive chamber dominated by quantum relay technology designed to penetrate the Death Zone's interference. Alara immediately interfaced with the systems, while Vu engaged Draven in a final confrontation. The Uthric commander, now fully activated, had transformed into a cybernetic nightmare, his natural form almost completely subsumed by mechanical components that whirred and reconfigured with each movement. "Your enhancement programs are primitive compared to what we've achieved," he taunted. Mechanical limbs, striking with precision that even Vu's reflexes barely avoided. Mere augmentation, rather than true evolution. A devastating blow caught Vu across his midsection, sending him crashing into communication equipment. Internal damage warnings flashed across his enhanced vision, medical nanites deploying to stabilize ruptured tissues. He rose, blood seeping from multiple wounds, but expression unchanged. "Evolution isn't about technology," Vu stated, moving into an offensive stance taught by masters on Earth. "It's about adaptation." What happened next echoed his confrontation with the Behemoth, but with crucial differences. Where that had been reactive, this was calculated. Where that had been necessary violence, this was precise justice. As Draven charged, cybernetic systems predicting Vu's likely evasion patterns. The human did something unexpected. He charged directly toward his opponent. They collided with force that would have killed unenhanced beings of either species. Vu's hands found purchase on the junction between Draven's organic spine and cybernetic integration systems. With a roar that contained all the determination of humanity's evolutionary struggle, he exerted force that stressed even his enhanced musculature to its limits. The sound of mechanical components tearing and organic tissues separating echoed throughout the chamber. Draven's cybernetic form convulsed as critical systems failed catastrophically. Vu stood over his fallen opponent, hands once again coated in alien fluids. But this time, the galaxy's communication systems were watching. Alara had successfully activated the facility's emergency broadcast protocols, transmitting evidence of the conspiracy directly to the Galactic Council and major population centers throughout Alliance space. And she had done more. She had ensured that Vu's final confrontation with Draven was captured and transmitted alongside the evidence. The galaxy watched as a human, representing the Alliance's newest member species, defeated a conspiracy that threatened 10,000 years of peace. They watched as he used the same terrifying physical capability that had shocked them days earlier, but this time in defense of all species, not just his own. "Transmission complete," Alara announced, her crystalline form dimmed from exertion. "The chairman acknowledges receipt. Alliance security forces have been dispatched to all identified conspiracy locations." Vu nodded, the adrenaline of combat fading as his medical systems worked to repair his injuries. "And our extraction. The chairman has authorized emergency protocols. A quantum displacement vessel will arrive within the hour." Her facets shifted to a warm amber hue. "We succeeded, Major." As they secured the communication center against possible counterattacks, Vu contemplated the consequences of their actions. The conspiracy had been exposed, but diplomatic repercussions would reverberate for generations. The Uthric and Zelnor governments would face internal purges and external scrutiny, and humanity's position within the Alliance had just become infinitely more complex. "What will you do now?" Alara asked, as they awaited extraction. Her crystalline form positioned near his, offering the subtle healing resonance her species could generate. "That depends on the Alliance's response," Vu replied, contemplating possibilities. "Military service may no longer be appropriate given the diplomatic implications." "You could continue in diplomatic capacity," she suggested. "Your actions have demonstrated both humanity's strength and its commitment to Alliance principles. Many who feared your species may reconsider their position." "Perhaps," Vu allowed himself a rare smile, "though diplomacy typically involves fewer spine-breaking demonstrations." Her facets shimmered in what he now recognized as Zelnor laughter. "Evolution often requires adaptation of traditional approaches." The events on Mortis Prime transformed Alliance politics more thoroughly than even the most radical conspirators had envisioned. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session upon Vu and Alara's return to Nebulon 5, the formal chamber now supplemented with unprecedented security measures. Evidence of the conspiracy had reached every corner of Alliance space, prompted by the dramatic footage of Major Vu's confrontation with Commander Draven. Public opinion, that complex multi-species organism, had shifted dramatically. Where humans had once been viewed with suspicion and fear, they were now seen as necessary protectors, evolutionary newcomers whose physical capabilities served the greater good. The chairman, displaying the wisdom of his millennium-long existence, orchestrated proceedings that allowed for justice without vengeance. The Uthric and Zelnor governments, eager to distance themselves from the conspiracy, cooperated fully with investigations while providing compelling evidence that the plot represented rogue elements rather than official policy. Major Vu stood before the full council 3 days after his return, no longer as a suspect, but as a witness, and, to many, a hero. His enhanced body had recovered from the confrontation, though medical nanites still worked to repair deeper tissue damage. He wore his formal diplomatic uniform, the gold emblem of Earth, catching the light as he addressed the assembled representatives. The actions at the Mortis Prime facility represented a fundamental threat to Alliance principles, he stated, voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Not because they employed advanced technology or genetic manipulation, but because they rejected the core premise upon which the Alliance was founded, that diverse evolutionary paths can and should coexist in peaceful cooperation. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Humanity is young compared to many Alliance members, Vu continued. Our physical capabilities, which have caused concern among some delegates, evolved from survival pressures on our homeworld. But our greatest evolutionary advantage has always been adaptation through cooperation, finding strength in diversity rather than eliminating it. The chairman nodded appreciatively before addressing the assembly. The Council has reviewed all evidence regarding the Mortis Prime conspiracy and Major Vu's actions both in this chamber and on the Death Zone planet. Our judgment is as follows. The assembly fell silent as the ancient being outlined the official response. The Death Zone would be placed under direct Council supervision, with multi-species scientific teams deployed to reverse ecological damage caused by weapons development. The Uthric and Zelnor governments would undergo monitored restructuring, with technology-sharing protocols revised to prevent future abuses. And most significantly for Vu personally, humanity's probationary status within the Alliance would be elevated to full membership, with all associated rights and responsibilities. Furthermore, the chairman concluded, in recognition of demonstrated commitment to Alliance principles, Major Vu is appointed to lead a new cross-species security initiative. This task force will identify and neutralize threats similar to what we faced, while serving as a model for cooperative defense. The announcement generated mixed reactions. Approval from species who had witnessed Vu's actions directly, lingering caution from those who still harbored evolutionary concerns. But the balance had shifted decidedly toward acceptance. As the formal proceedings concluded, Vu found himself approached by Dr. Alara Vishan, her crystalline form now bearing formal insignia designating her as the Zelnor's new chief liaison to the security initiative. It appears we will continue working together, Major, she observed, facets shifting in pleased patterns, though hopefully with fewer spines requiring breakage. One can always hope, Doctor, he replied with the hint of a smile, though adaptation remains our specialty. In the following months, their partnership evolved into something unprecedented in Alliance history. A human and Zelnor working in perfect synchronicity, each compensating for the other's evolutionary limitations while amplifying their strengths. Their example inspired similar collaborations across species boundaries, creating connections that transcended biological differences. The Death Zone planets, under intensive rehabilitation efforts, began showing signs of ecological recovery. Indigenous species adapted to changing conditions, demonstrating the remarkable resilience of life across evolutionary paths. The facilities that had produced behemoths were repurposed for environmental restoration, their advanced technology redirected toward healing rather than destruction. 1 year after the events on Mortis Prime, Vu stood on an observation platform overlooking the reclaimed central continent. Beside him, Alara's crystalline form reflected the planet's recovering atmosphere in prismatic patterns. Their professional relationship had deepened into something neither species had vocabulary to properly define, a connection bridging evolutionary divides. "The chairman requests our presence at Nebulon 5 next week," she informed him, interfacing briefly with communication networks. New intelligence suggests remnants of Draven's network operating in the outer sectors. Vu nodded, mentally calculating response scenarios. "We'll be ready. The task force has evolved considerably since our first mission." "As have we," she noted, her facets shifting to the deep violet hue that Vu now recognized as her expression of personal rather than professional communication. "Evolution never stops," he agreed, his enhanced vision capturing the subtle beauty of her crystalline resonance. "It simply finds new paths forward." As they prepared to return to their vessel, Vu contemplated the journey that had brought him here. From feared alien to alliance defender. From isolated representative to architect of cross-species cooperation. The spine-breaking incident that had once symbolized humanity's frightening potential had been transformed into a metaphor for breaking barriers between evolutionary paths. The galaxy remained dangerous, filled with threats both known and emerging. But for perhaps the first time since humans had looked toward the stars, Vu felt genuine optimism about their place in the cosmic community, not as conquerors or subjects, but as partners in the grand evolutionary experiment that spanned the stars. Together with allies like Alara, humanity would continue adapting, evolving, and occasionally, when absolutely necessary, breaking spines for the greater good.